All right, everybody, welcome back to the College Town Podcast.
What's so funny?
I don't know. It depends on whether you left it in or not.
What are you laughing about there?
I'm just laughing at Kyle Filipowski.
Getting trucked?
Yeah, that's the first thing we talked about.
Yeah.
Actually, the first thing we talked about was
The
pollen.
weather, yeah.
Yeah, but
You
anyway.
really got a strange thing for weather right now.
It's beautiful out.
Last
Look,
week it was cold as
we talk about Kyle Filipowski. We talk about Charlie Baker's comments as much as we hate him. We actually talk about we're probably a couple weeks late to this, but we talked about EA Sports finally putting the college football game out again.
Yeah, the NIL agreements basically went out this week
Yeah.
to all 134 FBS schools that accept it, and it'll be to all 85
Yes.
scholarship players.
We talked about the playoff format because it's the first opportunity we've had to talk about it.
Well, it
and
just got accepted too, the 5+7.
yes, that's why it's the first opportunity we've had. And then we talk about the pick'ems and
Yeah, you
just
guys have been
college
voting on them
basketball.
pretty well. Yeah, keep it up.
Great. So, see you in the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the College Town Podcast. It's warm outside.
It sure is.
And where we live, that means pollen. And I am immediately feeling it.
Or you know.
My throat is scratchy, yeah.
No, I don't have that issue. It's
I've-
usually winter for me is when it becomes rough.
No. I have terrible seasonal allergies.
Ooh.
Terrible. They're not good.
But it's also March. Coming up on March. It's about to be your favorite time of the year, right?
It is. It's going to be March later this week. It's coming up on Selection Sunday, which is a great day.
Yeah.
Coming up on International Women's Day, one of my favorite holidays.
There you go.
It really is. It's a great holiday.
Why not?
Yeah, because it's warm. Anyway, now we'll talk about what happened. Kyle Filipowski got trucked.
He sure did. He
Yeah.
did get trucked.
We'll talk about that first. That's what everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. The student was after him, 1,000%.
I saw. Did you see the top-down view?
I saw the overhead top
Yes.
for you.
Here's what I thought I saw.
Yeah.
First person that runs into him, probably mouthing off to Filipowski. Filipowski shoves him.
Right.
Second person
Shoves him in the back.
Yeah, the one who actually hurt Filipowski because he did start to twirl
Right.
after he pushed the guy, but the one who actually hurt him 100% pushed him on purpose,
Yes.
which happens all the time.
Really.
Yes, it happens. I think you see it a lot more in football because I don't know. People are stupid. People don't view athletes as actual people. And so I think when they see these like behemoths wearing shoulder pads and helmets, they're like, I can punch him and it's not going to hurt. And so a lot of times people just take a rib shot.
I don't know. John, I don't know about all that, but what I will say is,
I do know about all that.
no, I don't know about all that.
I do. Continue.
But Filipowski definitely got ran into on purpose.
Yeah.
It was intentional.
The second guy for sure.
It's going to be a massive fine for Wake. I don't think there's been any news about what the fine will be. Also, it's just failure by the security in Wake to allow for safe exit for the team, basically. And also another thing to note: students were on the court before the game was over. There's 1 second left, and there's already like a kid at the free throw line. Like the game wasn't completely over.
Who
I mean,
cares?
it was over by like the result, but like the clock hasn't struck zero. I mean,
The band was on the field for Stanford Cal. Who cares?
That was
It's part of the
such
history.
a long
It's
time.
part of history.
no, not at all. And I can't
It
believe
what
I'm
makes the
defending a
sport
Duke
great.
player here, but
Here's my thing. If this is Hunter Silas of Wake Forest that gets hurt, literally nobody cares. Nobody cares. No one cares. And the only reason that this is blown up the way it has is because it's Duke. That's the only reason that
it's the
if
best
it were-
player
if it
on
were-
Duke's team.
I know. If it were Hunter Silas, then like the ACC would not have released a statement within 2 hours like they did. With Duke, they're gonna do it with
I
their
don't
top
know.
Dookie.
I don't know necessarily about like comparing who it was or how it was. It is significant. I'll agree with you. It is way more significant because it is a very valuable player to a very good team with hopes
Yeah.
and aspirations of a national championship.
Sort of. I think I mean,
There's
look, they have talent.
I mean, they're a good team. They're arguably
No, very good. They have a ton of talent.
Right, exactly. And this is their best player this year. I don't think that's
No, I don't disagree with you at all.
And if he gets hurt and he's out for the season,
he won't be.
No, he's not though. But I'm saying if that happens, this is even more bigger ramifications to it.
The best thing possible for Duke is that their next game is against Louisville, so they can just sit Filipowski. No problem.
He looked like he was fine post game and everything.
He's not going to play next game though.
Really, you think
they're going to make a meal out of this?
No way.
Yes, they will.
No, they won't.
It's Louisville. They don't have to play him. They can still run it up by 30.
But they're still going to play him because they need him for minutes and conditioning. No, not at all. He's going to play.
One game?
What do you mean?
You need conditioning one game. If you miss one game, you're going to be sucking gas in March.
No, but you have to keep game sharpness. You have to keep conditioning.
Nah, it's BS.
No, it is not.
Yes,
I think
is.
What you're saying is complete BS. So
no,
they're just going to sit him. They're going to make a show out of this. They're going to try and prove a point. And I'm still trying to figure out what that point is if you so heartily believe it.
That they think there shouldn't be court storming. They're going to sit him. I guarantee it.
No,
I guarantee they will not play him.
Yes, they will.
No, they won't. Because your whole sharpness and conditioning, mental acuity crap, that's not true. That's not true.
What do you mean it's not true?
Look at the NBA.
Yeah.
They sit half the year.
No, they don't.
They do.
No, they don't.
When was the last time you watched a regular season game in the NBA?
Literally last night. What are we talking about? I was watching the Kings and the Clippers.
They sit a lot of games.
No, they don't.
And they're fine. Look.
You have to win games to be good. And you have to play your best players.
What I'm saying is you don't have to play your best players against Louisville. That's why they're not going to play Filipowski.
No, he's going to play.
It's different if they're playing Virginia.
They're going to sit Filipowski. They're going to sit Jared McCain. Is that what's going to happen on Wednesday?
Did Jared McCain get his ankle rolled?
No, but he's going to play.
What are you saying? You're just making stuff up at this point.
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is that you're saying Duke is going to make a point out of all this.
Yes, I am.
I'm like, no, they're not. He's going to play.
They will.
He's fine post game. All I'm saying is that as far as court storming goes, which is the original point here, is that there just needs to be safer operations for it to happen. Do I think it should be banned? No. Do I think there needs to be operations to protect away players for when it happens? Yes.
I agree with you. I do not disagree at all.
You're never going to ban stork corming. All you can do is the university students do not care how much the university is going to get fined for when it happens. It's going to continue to happen regardless. Kids will be kids. They want to have fun. They want to enjoy the moment, quote unquote. I feel like in the last year, there's been more court stormings for games that really don't deserve court stormings or field stormings. Yeah. And it's just going to happen more and more. Why? Because kids see it and they want to do it.
I don't disagree with that point at all.
I mean, but Filipowski's going to play.
I don't think he will.
What do they play, Wednesday or Tuesday?
Wednesday.
Yeah, he's going to play.
No, he won't, man. They're going to make a meal out of it.
He's going to be starting for the opening tip. He's going to be out there.
No.
I don't understand. To prove a point, you're not going to play your best player. It makes no sense.
Against a garbage team.
I don't think it matters.
Whether he plays or not?
No, I don't think it matters, when it comes to him, actually, what was I saying here?
You think he's going to play?
Yes, he will play.
I don't think he's going to play.
I think you're reading too much into something.
I really don't.
That isn't there.
I don't. I think your heart is too big.
What do you mean?
You need to come down to Grinch levels, baby.
No.
Your heart needs to shrink a couple sizes.
Why are you trying to say that he's not going to play to prove a point? And this is such an idiotic point.
No, that's what's going to happen.
No, it's not.
Sure it is.
Okay.
I guess we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. What do you want to talk about next? Who else played?
You go for it.
Creighton beat UConn.
And then they lose to St. John's later in the week.
Yeah, that's true.
But then it's also I don't know. There's multiple games to point at. Kentucky loses to LSU, but then beats Alabama by a gazillion.
Yeah, Washington State beat Arizona for the second time this season,
and then loses to Arizona State.
Yeah,
yeah. This is why you love college basketball because.
Yeah, this is also why you hate it.
Yes, I mean there's just some games where it's what is happening here? I mean, Yeah, Washington State was the biggest one to me. That was probably the biggest upset over Arizona. But then they lose to...
I think Creighton was a big upset just because UConn was just rolling.
Yeah, they were for a good bit. And then they lose by 19. I was watching that game, and they cut it. The closest they got was like 10 in the second half. It wasn't...
Yeah.
It never really
Creighton
got...
had control of that game.
They sure did.
The thing is, so we were talking about this right before we started recording. UConn has not won a top 25 road game since 2014.
Yeah, they have not...
When Kevin Ollie was the coach.
Yeah, they have not won a ranked game away, basically.
Yeah.
It's honestly interesting past 10 years, so that's what, 2014?
Yeah, that's 10 full years.
So was that the year that they won the national championship?
It is.
So they've won like 2 national championships in that span? No, 3?
2.
2, okay. I mean...
Because the one that they won was just a total fluke. That was, for those who don't remember, that was the year that the NCAA officials went on strike for the tournament. And so there were replacement refs for the tournament. And it was one of the worst officiated NCAA tournaments I have ever watched. Like it is the worst one. Like, I think Tennessee and Michigan played a game in that tournament. I think one of them had their foot completely out of bounds, and the ref is looking right at it and never calls it. It was bad. It was a
was
bad,
that when
bad
they
tournament.
were like the 7 seed and won it all?
I think they were an 8 seed.
The 8 seed? I thought they were a 7.
They might have been a 7. I know they played Kentucky.
Because they won back-to-back, right? They were like a 3, and then like they won like 2 in a row, didn't they?
No.
Like 20. I thought so.
No, they did not. The last team to win 2 in a row was Florida under Billy Donovan.
Oh, okay. Because one was with Kimba, right? And then one was with Shabazz?
I think they won 2 out of 4. So, yeah.
Yeah, so they won as a 7 seed in 2014. And then so 2014 was the 7 seed.
And then I think they won in 2011.
And that was with Shabazz Napier.
Yeah, and then I think in 2011 they won with Kimba.
And then 2011 they were the 3 seed and won with...
Yeah, by the way, you were right. UConn was the 7 seed that year. They beat the 8-seeded Kentucky Wildcats.
That was when Kentucky beat us.
Again, I contend the replacement refs are why we lost that game.
That was when Kentucky had the Harrison twins, I believe.
Yeah. I could rant about that Sweet 16 game, but I'm not going to. I don't think anyone wants to hear that.
Yeah, Julius Randle, both Harrison twins, James Young.
But no, that was one of the worst tournaments I've ever watched, just because the replacement refs were so bad, and it materialized in a nonsense tournament where there were upsets galore. And it's like, okay, I guess we're getting 2 blue bloods in the national championship, but they don't deserve to be here.
So here's a question for you: for this year's tournament, are you already like trying to figure out some Cinderellas that you kind of like?
Yeah.
Any notable teams that you're like, okay, this team looks really good, like, and they're not well known, like maybe like a group of 5 team, or maybe outside of that?
I'll give you 2 names. One that I liked earlier in the year that I'm definitely cooling on. One that I liked early in the year and I still like. The one that I liked and now I don't is New Mexico.
Okay.
They're a decent program. They're not a bad basketball program. Interestingly enough, though, they've never made the Sweet 16. They have never made it past the round of 32. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh, this is the year. Like, they are fast. They have good guard play. You know, they can just completely get you out of sorts, especially if, like, I don't know, let's say they're playing like a Big Ten team. There's not a lot of pressing going on in the Big Ten. So you run into that for the first time in the tournament, you don't know what to do. And I thought that was the recipe for them getting to the Sweet 16. Now I don't know. Now I'm not so sure. A team I like them, honestly. I like them to maybe get some upsets is Northwestern. I don't know how far they'll go.
Is that a Cinderella, though?
Depends on what they're seeded. I think the definition for a Cinderella depends on your seed in perpetuity to how far you go.
Oh.
Like, like UConn winning the national championship in 2014, that's a Cinderella because they were a 7 seed.
Okay.
You're not supposed to win. Syracuse, the 2 years that they went to the Final Four when they were like
11, they were a playing team.
They were an 11 seed one year. They were a 10 seed another year. They're not supposed to go to the Final Four.
I guess so, but it's also like those are like very prominent programs, in historically speaking. I'm like, when I think of Cinderella, I think of like Princeton last year, or I think of VCU with Shaka Smart. I think of
St. Peter's a couple years ago.
St. Peter's. You also think of like the 1 year where Northern Iowa beat Kansas as an 8 seed. You know,
You have to win more than one game to be a Cinderella, I think.
No, yeah, absolutely. All those are Cinderellas.
I wasn't sure how many of those had won.
Northern Iowa was an 8 seed that beat the number 1 overall team in Kansas. I believe it was back in like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like
those are like the notable ones I can think of off the top of my head, and I feel like there's always one Cinderella each year.
Typically,
right?
There typically is, and I mean the thing with the tournament though is like, you know, if none of the 15 seeds get past, and none of the 14, 13 seeds advance, then you know the threshold for who is Cinderella, you know, like kind of the darling of, you know, the casual viewer's eye
of the tournament.
It kind of changes.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, look, 9 seeded FAU still in. We like them. You know, that's our tournament darling now.
But then they played FDU, and you're like, okay, I don't know who to cheer for.
Well, that's last year's was crazy, man. It was so quickly like Fairleigh Dickinson. We love Fairleigh Dickinson, and then they lost to FAU, and they're like, we hate FAU, and then FAU kept winning, and then everyone's like, we love FAU, and then they lost, you know, to San Diego State, and then everyone's like, anyone but UConn, and then, you know, UConn
except for me, I had UConn in my bracket.
Yeah, you called that one, but
yeah,
no, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are a 15 seed, your threshold for becoming the Cinderella of the tournament is much, much lower than it is for a 6 seed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's how I've always felt. Yeah, but to go back to the point, it depends on where Northwestern's ranked. I could see them being like a 6 or 7 seed. I like Northwestern because of the guard play. I really, really like Boo Buie. I think he's a very good guard. And there's a few ways to become a Cinderella team in March. One of the best ways is guard play.
Oh, yeah.
Just elite guard play. I mean, you look at all these like teams that have gone on runs.
You gotta
BYU went on a run because they had Jimmer Fredette. Davidson went on a crazy run to the Elite Eight because they had Steph Curry. Like, that's a huge, huge component of a potential upset.
Right.
And that's why Purdue got bounced first game last year to a 16 seed because they didn't have good guard play.
Well, you also want to know, hopefully Braden Smith for them can step
He was
up.
a freshman last year.
Yeah, hopefully he can step
and they
up
brought
this
in
year.
a transfer guard, so...
And then the other funny thing about that is FDU was one of the smallest teams in the tournament against Purdue, who's one of the biggest teams in the tournament.
That's because they just press.
Hey, it's interesting. I mean, you do have to play a risky style of basketball to get those upsets.
Oftentimes, yeah.
You either got to shoot a high clip from 3 and hope you're making them, or you got to be pressing the tempo. You really can't sit back and let UConn or like Houston and these teams control the pace and slow you down, and because you need more possessions and more shots to have a shot.
Yeah, another. I think you kind of alluded to it there. Another way to be a Cinderella team is to be one of those teams that just has a great defense all year long. Their offense just isn't there, and then all of a sudden you just get hot in the tournament.
Yeah,
that's it. That's because that happens sometimes. South Carolina went on a Final Four run.
That is right. I forgot about that.
When they had a terrible offense, and all of a sudden they just strung together 4 games where it's like, oh, okay, cool, they're in the Final Four. Not Fairleigh Dickinson, St. Peter's, a couple of years ago.
Just gotta hit some shots.
That's what took them to the Elite Eight. Louisville in 2012.
What about like Oral Roberts with Max Amos or Amos?
Amos is he's at Texas.
No, I know, but when he was at Oral Roberts, didn't they have a few upsets?
Yeah, they beat. Did they beat Duke last year? Or did Tennessee? No. I think
No, it was 2 years ago. It was 2022.
Oral Roberts has had an upset. Yeah,
Right.
they've gone on a little bit of an upset run
No,
in the
it was
past.
not that year.
But yeah, no, I think it's either elite defense and then you just get hot on offense, or you just have elite guard play. I think
Oh no, they got bounced first round against Duke.
That is the key to making a run in
Was
March.
it his freshman year? What year was it? They went on a run. Yeah, they beat Ohio State and Florida, and then they lost to
Arkansas.
Yeah, that was in 2021, the COVID year.
All right.
He played 95% of the games. 95% of the minutes. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yep.
Oh yeah. So
it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. As far as like the tournament goes, because there is a lot of games to still come, where we'll actually get to see how teams do really in the conference tournament. And there's in those tests there. Plus, you also got some big they've started to do this in college basketball as well as college football, where they put like the rivalry games at the very last game of the season. So like you have
they've been doing that,
right? So you mean like I'm talking like for football they've started to do it, and then also they do it for basketball now. So now you got Duke and UNC are going to be matched up again. Gonzaga, St. Mary's are going to be matched up again. I forget who the SEC rivalries are. Like Kentucky, Tennessee are going to play. Let's see. For the big, I believe Kansas and Houston still have one more go at each other.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the last game of the year,
but it's like you still got some very prominent games still going on.
Yeah, and then of course the tournament. That's going to be. I'm excited. I'm interested.
Yeah, Kansas, Houston's the last game of the year.
So.
And then like Purdue still got Wisconsin and Illinois and Michigan State.
So I've got some teams for you.
Go for it.
I want you to tell me what they have to do in your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
If you're commissioner of the selection committee, the chair of the selection committee, what they have to do to make a tournament run, or at least just to get to the tournament.
Just to get to the tournament.
Yeah.
All right.
The first one is St. John's. Just pulled off a big upset against
St. John's
Creighton.
needs a lot of work, in my opinion. They've got to basically win now and win fast. I think they have to win like the Big East tournament to get in.
I don't know if they have to do that.
They got to win out. They've got Butler, DePaul, Georgetown. All three must-win games. The Butler game will be crucial. I mean, they have a losing record in the Big East. There's definitely a lot of teams
by a game.
Yes, but I'm saying there's a lot of teams in front of them that are on the bubble, like Providence, Seton Hall, and Villanova. Who all are in front of them right now.
Villanova should not make the tournament.
I don't know.
They have too many terrible losses. I know they have good wins, but they have terrible losses.
And once again, it's yin and yang. I mean, like it's you got to have both, I suppose. But I haven't looked at independently of Villanova's resume to St. John's resume, but it's also outside of the conference. It's they haven't really played anybody. They played Dayton. St. John's has outside of the conference. There's not very many impressive wins outside of the Big East.
I think they could. I don't think they have to win their conference tournament too.
I mean, Villanova's got wins over North Carolina, Texas Tech, Maryland. They've got wins over Creighton. Well, both of them do. But yeah, the 1 week where they had St. Joseph, Drexler, and now technically Kansas State might be considered a bad loss. In Penn.
Well, so that gets me to the next one is Kansas State.
No, they're not in.
I'm just saying, what do they have to do?
They have to make it to.
They're 16-11 right now.
Yeah,
they have a better record than St. John's.
Yeah, I'm aware. They got a good win over BYU. They got West Virginia and Cincinnati, Kansas, and Iowa State. They have to beat Cincinnati and West Virginia. And then I would say they would have to get to that quarterfinal round where they face the 1 through 4 seeds of the bye in the Big 12. Because right now they are sitting at
They're definitely bottom.
They
bottom
are.
half.
Yeah, they are. I mean,
I think they're like
they're 10th. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're 10th right now in the Big Ten, and I think that's right on the line because I think Texas barely gets in as like a 9 seed, maybe 10 seed. So Kansas State is below that. They've got some work to do. They've got to pull off an upset or two now.
I think their best chance is if they can beat Iowa State at home.
I mean, they definitely, that would be a very good win for their resume because Iowa State is very good.
Yeah, and they are also Iowa State is beatable on the road. They are virtually untouchable at home. But
right. So let me put it this way: both teams that you have mentioned, I would say, are outside looking in right now.
okay, now I've got a. This one might hurt you a little bit to give me an answer, but
Go for it.
Michigan State.
Michigan
Michigan State had a terrible week. Lost to Iowa, lost to Ohio State.
So, I mean, yeah.
And both of those were at home.
Yeah.
And their remaining games, at Purdue, Northwestern at home, at Indiana. Indiana, that should be an easy win. Indiana's falling apart right now.
Yeah, I would say, I mean.
But that puts you at 18-13 going into the conference tournament.
I mean, if they can beat Northwestern, it'd be a good win for them. I mean, obviously Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin. Wisconsin's even looking iffy right now, but they're in at the moment. And then, I mean, Northwestern, Nebraska, and Michigan State would be your bubble teams. But Michigan State's got work to do. I would say that they probably have to end up in the final in the Big Ten, in the tournament.
Yeah.
They would have to beat like a Purdue, Illinois, or Wisconsin.
I don't think they have to do that much damage in the Big Ten tournament, personally. I think Michigan State's one of those teams that they tend to just put in, even when they're not deserving, because they have the second longest tournament streak right now. They just want to keep that going, I think.
If it's deserving, yes, but if it's not, then it's not.
If they only beat who's left on the schedule? If they only beat Indiana in the regular season, then they don't really do anything in the Big Ten tournament. They shouldn't go.
It is weird, though, because like their worst loss is like James Madison or Ohio State, maybe Minnesota, but it's like
Minnesota's not bad.
No, exactly. So like, I mean, like they don't have like a quote unquote like bad loss. I mean, every single loss that they have, for the most part, other than like Iowa this last week, are tournament teams, I would say. Looking at it, but then also their most impressive win is Baylor, the rest in Illinois.
Baylor, they did just absolutely
destroy,
wax them.
So it's interesting because like you've got two teams that were ranked in the top 16 right there that you've beaten, but then you also got losses to Ohio State team that just fired their coach, as well as like, I mean, Minnesota or Iowa, but I don't know. I would say they're in right now, which is kind of crazy, but I mean, like, if you asked me last week, they're definitely in, but now those two losses are rough. They definitely got to bounce back. I would say they
could potentially lose 4 in a row.
Yeah, I could see it.
You think there's any chance they make it if they lose to Indiana?
No. I mean, there's always a chance of like the automatic bid.
I mean, technically, I don't think anyone's going to beat Purdue.
I mean, they've got 3 losses.
I just don't think the Big Ten's very good.
I don't know. It could be interesting. Purdue might come up against their kryptonite Northwestern. And
that's true. Northwestern could beat them.
So
got superior guard play.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Those are the teams I wanted to get to. I think you gave some good points there.
Because I mean, like you're competing against teams that are like also like borderline. Like there's like 2 really good teams in the Missouri Valley, and maybe only one gets in. Like there's Drake and Indiana State, both very good teams.
I personally don't think they're that good. I have watched them. I don't think they're that good.
And then you also got teams in like the A10 who I value a lot. Like
A10's a solid conference.
Like Dayton. Dayton is obviously in, and they are obviously the best team in the A10. Mm-hmm. You also got a couple of teams like
Richmond,
Loyola Chicago's very good too, in my opinion.
They're solid. VCU, are they in the A10?
Yes.
Yeah, they're also solid.
VCU's interesting. Then you also got teams in like the American, where it's like USF just clinched a share in the regular season.
They've got to go. They got to get in the tournament.
It'd be interesting though because like their out of conference is awful. Like
It's one of those where USF is the resume. If you look at it as a whole, they've won 19 out of their last 20.
Yeah.
But then before that, they stunk. So, and then you also got FAU in there. And then maybe does an SMU get in? Memphis obviously is not good enough to get in right now, in my opinion.
They just beat FAU.
Right. I'm just saying, and even then, it's like
No, Memphis has some work to do, I think.
Like all these mid majors. Let's see, A10, Group of 5, and then Mountain West is very good.
Mountain West, yeah, you gotta get.
So I mean, is it 5 or 6 that get in there? Is Boise State on the outside, or is it Nevada on the outside?
I don't know. I do not know.
And then 4 or 5 teams in the Big East as well.
Yeah. All right. What do you want to talk about?
Miss?
Ole Miss is not trending in the right direction.
Ole Miss. I'm just trying to think of those bubble teams in the SEC right now.
There's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What do you want to talk about next?
I mean,
it's a lot of football stuff.
It is kind of funny. Yeah. I mean, it's really just college football 25 is officially going to be coming out soon in the summer.
Yeah.
So,
video game.
Yeah, the video game. Yes. The way that they were able to get this game back up and running. For those of y'all who don't know, the franchise was discontinued back in 2014 due to the fact of not NIL, but compensation for players and not receiving compensation.
Ed O'Bannon is it EA? Did he sue EA or did he sue the NCAA?
I think it's EA.
Yeah, the Ed O'Bannon lawsuit.
Discontinued the game basically, more or less.
Yeah, and then that ended the basketball game even earlier because
the basketball game stopped in 2010.
Yes, so the reason why it actually stopped earlier than football, I think is kind of interesting.
Really?
With football, there's helmets and shoulder pads, and you don't really see their faces. And because EA knew what they were doing was kind of illegal, mm-hmm. And so they would make the characters in the game similar enough to real life people,
right?
But not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they just give a dude dreadlocks. Sometimes they would just make someone bald. Sometimes they would change your race entirely, mm-hmm. So that there's a level of plausible deniability. With the basketball game, you couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
there's
people.
number 3 on the back, and for Kentucky, and it was John Wall.
Yeah,
it was Blake Griffin at Oklahoma on the cover.
Everyone knew who each person was, and so there wasn't this air of that's quarterback number 2.
Well, what's interesting though is that for the history of the programs, history of the games, coaches were never in the game. They never have, and they never will be. The football games, they never were. The basketball games, they never.
Their names were.
No, they weren't. No, they were not.
Yeah, they were.
No, they weren't. I literally played it yesterday. It's not.
I guarantee that it's just outdated.
No, I promise you it's not. NCAA Football 14 never had coaches in it. They were never in the game. There might have been a coach that was shown that was white and might have looked like someone, but there was no names associated to anything or anything like that. And so while he looks
I know that's not true.
No, I know it is true.
That is not true.
You could add rosters to get the names, but you could never, on the original release, there was no names. You had to add them.
All right.
But yeah, because Abby playing as Louisville or whatever back in 2014, and at that time, our head coach I believe was
Charlie Strong.
Yeah. And it was just a regular old generic white guy. That's just coaching carousel you're looking at. That is just a version of the game for when you're playing Dynasty. But yeah, coaches won't be in the game as well. But the point that we're trying to get to is this might be one of the largest NIL collective deals because it involves each team in the game will have 85 players on their roster. And the reason for the 85 is any scholarship player that is on an FBS team, because all 134 FBS teams were accepted to be in the game. There was sent out contracts earlier this week or last week to allow the players to sign, and the NIL deal that they would receive would be $600 and a copy of the game. There has been some notable opt-outs already to be mentioned from what I was able to see. Jalen Milroe is one of the players that has already opted out,
which does make sense if you're able to renegotiate as one of these top players to go and try and get more money. EA has also come out and said that they will not be allowing users to edit players in the band names of players that opted out. So basically, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to do that.
Here's some mod for that.
You're gonna have to do that Cam Newton font, if you will, to have Jalen Milroe, but it's gonna be accented I and R and O or whatever.
Yeah.
And also, EA has announced that they are not going to release information of who has opted out. You can see who has opted in so far, and so far it's been roughly about 10,000 players have opted in out of the...
I don't know why you wouldn't.
Well, I mean, like, if you're the third-string punter at Appalachian State, sure, opt in.
Do they have a third-string punter?
Probably not.
I'm going to look it up. Keep going.
Probably like a second-string corner at App State, I will say. Take your $600 and the copy of the game, absolutely. But if you're a well-known, established player, like ones that come off the top of my head are obviously Jalen Milroe, Quentin Ewers, maybe Caleb Downs of like Ohio State. Why not try and go get more money? Then there's also some players that have announced that they want to be in the game. All they want to do is be in the game and play as themselves. It's just been a dream of themselves. Like Travis Hunter tweeted out saying that he's in the game, basically. And it's rumored that he will be one of the highest overall players in the game as well.
You gonna bring... Wait, no. Idaho's not in the game anymore, are they?
If they're not an FBS
They're
team,
FCS now.
I don't think there's any FCS teams in the game.
Who you gonna bring to prominence?
To prominence?
Yeah.
First, I gotta buy a PS5 to play the game.
Oh God, that's expensive.
Well, I mean, like, if it's on PC, I'll just play it on PC. But I'm not sure if it's on PC yet. It'll be fun to see, though. There are people concerned that it'll be just a rebrand of Madden. Also, Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit announced that they are in the game as well.
Great.
They're happy to announce. Chris Fowler came out on a podcast basically talking about on some of the weirdest calls he's had to do. Chris Fowler had to do voiceovers for 71-yard field goal attempts. So that's in the game. You can do a 71-yard field goal attempt.
I mean, you could do a field goal attempt from anywhere.
Well, let me rephrase it. He said that, and it's good, too. So, I mean, like, there's someone in the game who can kick a 71-yard field goal.
Yeah, turn up the sliders, and then boom, you can hit it from...
definitely. But
you can hit it from your own one.
And that's the beauty of it. But, yeah, while you look for the third-string punter that probably doesn't exist, that I just made up, that's going to get $600, there's also, I mean, the game should just be pretty fun to watch overall. I mean, to play overall. Hopefully it's good. Because if it's anything like the NCAA Football 14, they've also announced that, so in your Dynasty mode, there will be NIL and other factors included. The transfer portal will be in the game as well.
They've got 3, they've just listed as kickers. They've got
enough.
3 kickers. Shout out to Cash McVay, baby.
Cash McVay, if you are getting $600 in this game, if you've opted in.
Yeah.
Also, a thing to note, it's
a redshirt junior from California.
Also
from
to note,
Anaheim. We love you, Cash.
So it's not everyone on the roster. So the way it works is it's either scholarship players or players that are on the depth chart. If you're not on the depth chart and just like a practice player, you won't be getting this offer.
Sure. Yeah.
So
okay. I mean, this is great. I think one of the great things about college, not college football, the NCAA football, NCAA basketball games, which by the way they're calling it EA football and basketball now.
They are,
which is funny, but one of the great things about it was that you could go to you could start a dynasty as Cal or whoever, and then just be like, oh, that's a really cool looking stadium Cal's got. You know, you could see this thing that you'll never ever get to see because it's in the game. Because they did put a lot of attention to detail, and so you just learn all these things, and it kind of makes, in an era where realignment's trying to ruin college sports, it makes it feel a little more local, which is nice. You said this is one of the biggest NIL deals.
collective deals.
Yeah. This is
It's worth maybe like $80K.
Yeah,
overall.
no, I'm no.
It's not like monetarily big,
Yeah.
but it's the biggest as far as like number of people in the deal.
So that made me think.
Mm-hmm.
What if we started a collective, an NIL collective, and our only purpose was to service the underdogs of a sport? Like specifically, I'm thinking of the teams in college basketball that have never made the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a thought. We don't have the money to do this, or the resources or backing or anything. I was just saying, what if we started a collective where it's like, all right, all our money is just going to go to William and Mary until they can get to the NCAA tournament, and then they'll cross them off our list, and then we'll direct all our attention to Stetson.
Well, it is.
That'd be
funny.
fun.
Yeah. What's funny though is so when I had NCAA basketball 10, I led a historically black college in Howard all the way to the national champion. So
Howard, baby.
So I don't know if Howard's ever made the tournament, but they were one.
They have.
But they were one of the worst teams in college basketball back in 2010. So
Gotta love Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a friend that went there.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm. So go Howard, baby. Go. I think they're Bison.
Yep, they are.
Yep.
I'm sure. Where are they? DC?
Yes, they are in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I learned something because when you pick on the school, it shows the location of where they are on a map.
It's awesome.
And so I was
See,
like,
you learn stuff.
so I was like, Howard University, they're in DC. I'm gonna pick them.
Yeah.
Man, it was a brutal rebuild for 4 years.
I can imagine.
I had to basically clean slate the whole team and then recruit like 3 stars was the best I could do at first.
Well,
You gotta start somewhere.
yeah.
Building blocks. Don't call it a 5-year plan for nothing.
All right. Well, let's go on to Charlie Baker's comments about
Yeah.
about student athletes getting paid.
Yeah.
This guy sucks.
Yeah. I kind of agree with him though.
I don't fully agree with him. I'll let you. I'll let you
So
say it,
basically,
and then we'll.
So basically, this has been in news circulations. I mean, since December, he's been making comments about creating tiers within Division I and everything. But basically, he held like a press conference and basically came out and said that if student athletes get paid, 95% of programs are going to, like 95% of sports within college are done. And to a certain extent, he is right. He just wants Congress to grant a limited antitrust exemption that would allow it to safeguard college sports without the constant threat of litigation. He has also come out and said that he has realized that this probably won't happen this year due to the fact that it is an election year and that politicians don't really have a forefront care for college sports at the moment. Another interesting thing to note is that within the past year, conferences have upped their lobbying budgets. The ACC has the largest lobbying budget right now. It's reported at $1.2 million. The SEC upped theirs by $200,000. It's not exactly reported how much it is. Rumored to be around $800K. But these conferences are constantly lobbying in Congress for what they want. I assume against the NCAA.
What they're lobbying for is to not pay players.
Right. And then,
which technically they're in lockstep with the NCAA in that regard.
One thing I agree with what Charlie Baker has said is that he's proposed back in December of creating tiers within Division I that allows students to make the most money to pay their athletes. I mean, they've got several lawsuits going on. Is also the big one is Dartmouth is trying to unionize. I believe it was their basketball team.
They have already successfully done so.
Right. So at that point,
they've been granted the ability to unionize.
Right.
And I think they're trying to start. I don't think they're trying to start a Dartmouth union. I think they're trying to start an Ivy League athletes union, which is smarter in my opinion.
Right. And so basically, Baker's come out and said that while unionization or like employment for players would work at very high-end institutions where they have the TV rights deals and they have the money allocated to do that, it won't work for historically black colleges, Division II or Division III schools. And he said, quote, "You're talking about 95% of colleges that probably spend somewhere between $40 million and $5 million and $45 million on college sports, and they lose money. They don't have TV contracts, and nobody can look at their income statements and balance sheets and conclude that they would have a way to make money." That was like the main take that he really had that blew up. And then I started to think, as well as look at other opinions online. Let's just say you pay every single college athlete the minimum wage, and you would have to pay them for every single practice, meeting, and game. It becomes very quick and very evident that it is not sustainable at all. You would have to keep college football because that's the moneymaker. College basketball would have to stay. Probably women's basketball would stay. And then one other college sport would stay because of Title IX.
Well, the problem is it's not one other sport. It's an equal number of athletes.
Right.
So you couldn't just be a four-sport school. You'd have to have more.
You would have to have enough to be equivalent with football because it's such a maybe cut down on like your roster for football and only have like 60 guys rather than 85.
So here's the thing. I think there is truth in what Charlie Baker said. Ultimately, what he's doing, he was brought on to the NCAA because he used to be the governor of Massachusetts.
2 times, yeah.
He was brought on specifically to try and use his connections in the government to get Congress to pass laws so that they could continue to operate their own modern slave trade.
He's only been at the helm for like a year now or so.
Year or two, yeah.
Yeah. It's been about a year.
Yeah, but he is getting it handed to him.
He sure is. I mean, they have not really won any major cases.
I agree with him on, there are a lot of schools that will not be able to do this, but a lot of conferences can help. Like, conferences can really, really help. Like, just to look at it, the SEC and Big Ten, they're making like $1 billion a year.
They are.
They can easily pay every student athlete and still be profitable. Like, they'll be fine. The SEC will be fine. Other conferences that are, still like football conferences.
Well, like here's the question:
Mountain West could.
Would the Group of 5 survive?
I think some would. Yeah, I think Mountain West might.
I mean, like
Pac-12. Actually, I don't know if Mountain West would because my own personal opinion, they should just merge and become the Pac-12.
Right. I mean, so the Group of 5 is what? The Mountain West, A10.
No, Group of 5 is Mountain West, the Sun Belt, MAC,
Conference USA,
and then the American.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at those schools and I'm like,
the American could do it, Sun Belt could do it.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, they could.
No,
the money's there in that geographical area.
I don't think it is though. You have to look at I don't think you realize how much money it is to keep all these.
No, I'm aware. It costs a lot. I'm just saying the American and the Sun Belt make a lot.
I don't know.
And if they don't make a lot now, they will make a lot because
you're basically asking football to subsidize all these sports.
No, I understand that it's not as simple as just pay them, then they'll all be paid. I also you can't not pay them. I don't think you can not pay them.
I think you can pay what you're worth. So if you're obviously a highly sought after recruit, 5-star going to Bama, maybe has Heisman hopefuls, whatever. You're a very talented player, and you are the upper echelon top % of athletes in college. Absolutely, you are getting paid. That is where the eyeballs are. That is what people want. But as far as when it goes to a kid who's just happy to get a scholarship offer to go to Marshall, I don't think you're going to be worth. I don't think you're going to get paid anything when it comes to being a starting linebacker at Marshall. No offense to anyone, but it's that's not going to be sustainable. If you are a highly sought after person, and that's where I kind of agree with Charlie Baker, where it's create the tier, where it's do you want to be in the paid tier, where the tier is you get paid, and then you have to show back up by a university that you can sustain it? Sure. You're willing to put up the money, you're willing to put up the athletics that are a priority to the university, do that. But then there's also going to be the other tiers below that where it's lower D1s, as well as D2s, D3, and historical black colleges that are just not going to be able to do that at all.
The problem is this is the NCAA's fault.
It is.
They could have worked on this before they inevitably were just going to get it handed to them once again by the Supreme Court.
It is their fault, but also it's there is something about having to try and make it right, even though your back is against the wall. You know what I mean? And it's like, I agree what he's saying. It might be a little bit too late, but what he's saying is not necessarily wrong. I do agree that there should be a tier where it's like maybe your Power 4 conferences now have their own league, you know? I mean, inevitably what should happen is football should just be its own entity away from the NCAA.
Not away from the NCAA, a different branch of the NCAA. No one wants to get rid of the NCAA in the schools and the conferences. I guarantee it. No one wants to because the NCAA is a shield. They do not want to get rid of that shield because then all the lawsuits go to them. They all want the NCAA to survive. They just...
But also, it's like the NCAA doesn't make their money from football like that. They make their money from hosting the tournament. They have the rights to the tournament. So they really care about March. They don't, not that they don't care about football, but football's driving the bus for a lot of these schools. And for the NCAA, it's not really the bus driver for them.
I think NCAA is still going to remain alive in football.
I mean, supposedly, maybe. I'm just interested to see because with this Dartmouth case coming out, where they're like, we want to get paid and everything, I wonder what the ripple effect will be when it comes out and says all college athletes have to be compensated in some.
That case has already been working its way up to the Supreme Court.
Right. So when that ruling does happen, and it's like, okay, everyone's entitled to minimum wage. I mean, I assume that's what you're going to pay these athletes if you're able to pay them.
You can pay people less than minimum wage.
Can you though?
What do you make as a waiter?
I make $2.13.
Exactly, that's less than minimum wage.
Yeah, but I feel like there's laws in the books that stipulate differently. If you're tipped, if you're a tip service, you're allowed to pay less. These guys aren't getting paid tips.
Yeah, they can get scholarships though.
I think you're gonna have to finagle your way through law there to see if that's allowed.
Stuff like it'll happen. It's fine. Like that happens all the time.
I mean. You say that, but I don't know if it's legally allowed. There probably is going to be some stuff passed for the NCAA to make it happen. They still need help.
Just like life, capitalism finds a way.
They're going to need help from Congress.
I don't disagree, but yeah. All right. Let's move on to the playoff. I'm sure we lost a lot of people there.
I mean, there's only like 10 people that watch this anyway.
This far, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
All right. They finally did it, the 5+7 format for college football, the 12-team playoff. Top 5 conference champions get automatic bids, and then the other 7 are at large. First 4 seeds will get first-round byes, with the next 4 seeds getting to host a playoff game.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. I mean, just look at the FCS playoffs. It's very cool when they host playoff games.
Yeah. Because it's everything on the line for that game.
Yep.
It's not like it's a make or break. I mean, there's some games that make or break your season, but to actually know that.
It literally, if you don't win, this is it.
You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so interesting thing is that the top 4 conference champions are going to be the top 4 seeds. Yeah. You can't be undefeated number 1 Georgia and then get upset in the conference championship. Alabama can't knock you off, and then you still be a top 4 seed. You can get that bye. You have to win the conference championship, which is great because I think it puts more emphasis back on conference championship games.
Yeah.
Which there's a little bit of, like, not fully, obviously, but there's a little bit of, like, they lost some luster.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it will be interesting to see if upsets do happen in conferences like the Big 12 or like the ACC, where it's like you're going to have like a 10-2 Oklahoma State that could maybe be a 4 seed, or you have like a 10-2 Louisville that could be a 3 or 4 seed, something along those lines, where it could shake up the rankings a little bit. And then that ends up, because it might be a team that's looking outside looking in on a 12 seed, but it's now they're in because they get the automatic bid to be a top 4 seed.
Yeah, like a couple of years ago, Kansas State would have been a top 4 seed. With 3 losses, they would have been a top 4 seed, which is awesome. It's going to make conference championship weekend more fun.
It's going to be more valuable, yeah. Well, rather than it being, it is valuable with the 4, but it was essentially win and get in to a certain extent.
Like this past season, Virginia Tech was 5-5 at one point in the season. There was a very realistic path where they could have made the conference championship game.
Mm-hmm.
If it were already this 5+7 format for the 12-team playoff, they could have won and got in as like an 8-5 team.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. They're probably going to get, bounce first round that they play, but that's fun. It's fun,
Yeah.
But yeah,
It'll be interesting to see.
yeah.
I wonder though for that 5th spot. So it's 5+7. Obviously, with the Pac-12 being dismantled more or less at the moment.
Yeah.
Who's that 5th conference?
Oh, it'll rotate. I think more often than not, it'll be the American, but it'll rotate.
Well, I mean, the American just lost their best school in SMU, in my opinion. I mean, they still have Tulane and stuff, but it's like the American. I'm just trying to think of others off the top of my mind, like Conference USA. No.
MAC, no.
No.
Could be the Sun Belt. It depends. It's gonna depend on the year.
Oh, fair enough.
I think it all depends on the year. Interestingly enough, Notre Dame can never have a first round bye in this current format because they don't play in a conference championship game.
Which could be a blessing for them. And I'll explain. Don't get me wrong. The bye is very important and very valuable because you get to rest guys, get healthy if you have any.
And you automatically advance.
Automatically advance as well. But also, it also has a. If Notre Dame knows they're going to the playoff, and odds are they're probably going to be in between that 5 and 8 seed, even if they're 1 through 8 throughout the entire season, if they're within the top 8 seeds, they're going to be guaranteed money by hosting a game as well as having the independent TV right with NBC. So right there alone, I don't know how they'll finagle that within their contract, but that's going to be a big moneymaker for them regardless. Because rather than playing one less game is one less opportunity to see eyeballs and get money. So
yeah, no, I think a lot
from a monetary aspect is probably positive for them.
You probably make more money as a school being like a 6 seed than you do being the number 1 overall seed because you're going to host a playoff game.
Yeah, exactly. You'll get all those ticket sales as well as whatever the TV rights deals that come with it because you're on the screen for a major time game.
Mm-hmm. There's already, so that's interesting, there's already talks by people in power of like, let's push this thing to 14. And it's like, let's just let this happen first. I think, in my mind, the ideal scenario is 16. That is the perfect amount. Any more, that's too much. Any less, I don't think it's enough. 16 is perfect, but let's get a nice 10-year run with the 12-team playoff, and then push to 16, and then call it at that.
Well, I would say let's see how 12 is, and if we're gonna still have competitive games.
We will.
Is that 5 versus 12
Guarantee we
going
will.
to be competitive?
People were saying that the 4-team playoff was not going to be competitive. Very first year, the number 4 seed wins it all.
Right.
Guarantee.
Right. So I'm just saying, like,
it will be competitive.
I get why they did 12 because the 5 versus 12 for a first round matchup is way better than having a 1 versus 16. I'm afraid of turning on a game and it not being competitive. That's what I would fear. Because then it's like, okay, I don't want to watch this game. Obviously, Georgia's just going to mop the floor with whoever 16 seed they have to play, and we're going to move on from that, or Ohio State or whoever. You know, I don't want to turn into watch a game that is a very meaningful game, and it's just not close.
I know what you mean, but I think it really it's the chicken and the egg thing.
It's like when TCU made it to the championship against who they played, Georgia.
But it was the championship game.
I know.
Georgia almost got beat the game before. It was the perfect game by Georgia, the perfect dud by TCU.
Right.
That's all it was.
And did you not just kind of like either one have it on in the background?
No, I turned it off very quickly.
Or did you turn it off?
I turned it off very quickly.
So it's like you don't want those games to happen. So I'll be interested to see what happens with this matchup first, and then go from
with
there.
an expanded playoff. There's going to be more parity because everyone knows with the BCS, you had to be one of 2 undefeated teams. Yeah. Everyone wanted to go to the top teams because everyone wanted to play. Mm-hmm. Now in the national championship, then it expanded to 4, and And everyone's like, okay, there's more options. I don't have to go to Alabama.
No.
I don't have to go to USC or, Michigan, Nebraska, whoever. And then now with the 12-team teams, it's going to be even more. Like transfer portal kids. They're not everyone's going to be just gunning to get to Ohio State, even though there's going to be a lot of people that will because it's Ohio State. They have the money, they have the prestige, right. But there's going to be a lot of people who are like, Ole Miss has got a nice thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I not just, go there? We're like, they've already got a good team. If I go there, they're going to be even better. So they're going to be even better positioned to get to the playoff. So I think give it time. This will increase parity. There will not be that just discrepancy that people think there will be. And I think, here's why I think 16 is better than 14. Clearly 14 is just an effort to give the SEC and the Big Ten a first-round bye.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That is 100% all it is.
Yeah.
So if it ever gets expanded again, go straight to 16. Skip 14. Who cares about that? That's my thought. But this is great. I think it's great for the sport.
It will be, absolutely. Now, realistically, though, do you think all 12 teams, like when you enter college football, is it really 12 teams have a shot every year?
That's the thing, though. No. The pool of teams that can win it all will expand because the opportunity has expanded. That's what I believe now. That's what I believed from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago when they did a 14 playoff, I was like, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be competitive. Like, I thought it was just so ridiculous. All these people saying like, back when the 14 playoff started, like, oh, why are we even going to 4 teams? There's only 2 teams that are good anyway. And then year 1, Ohio State wins it all as the 4 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Put that to bed really fast.
Yeah.
And they're not the only 4 seed to win it all, too. 3 seed never won it, interestingly enough.
Huh.
But yeah, there's going to be upsets. And upsets earlier than people think. Like, you're going to have, like, a 7 seed make it to the Final Four. And then people are going to be like, I don't know if year 1, but early on, you're going to have something like that happen, where a 7 seed goes further than people thought. And they're like, this is great. But, guaranteed at the beginning of next season, there's going to be people saying, like, only 4 teams can win it anyway. I don't know why we're doing 12. It's like, shut up. Shut up. Yeah. Even in March Madness, there's only like 8-ish teams, give or take every year that can win it all. Sometimes one of those 8 teams gets upset. It's not, it isn't always come the Elite 8. That's the 8 teams. It's like, well, yeah, those are the ones that can win it. Those are the ones that had a shot that going in that we all knew. No, they'll get upset. So even if there are only like 4 to 5 teams that can actually win it in college football every year, one of those teams is going to get upset. It's going to happen. And it's going to be fun.
Gotcha.
All right, what do we got next?
I think you just have the talking point.
Yeah. It's just something I've noticed. So we talked, I don't even know when it was, like a month and a half ago, something like that.
It was in December.
Oh, so it was like 2 months ago.
It might have been. It was like December, I believe, when TCU had to forfeit 2 games due to injury.
No, because it was Big 12 play had started. So
yeah. So it might have been. It was January then. It was a little bit ago, but
yeah, but TCU had to forfeit 2 games because they just literally did not have
they couldn't field a team.
Enough available players to field the team.
Mm-hmm.
Per the requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they forfeited, it was a knock on their Big 12 record, but it was not a knock on their overall record.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've gotten some players in. They got some walk-ons just so they can play.
I think they brought in like 4 walk-ons.
Yeah, they're still not that good. They weren't good to begin with. I didn't think, but yeah, they had to forfeit those 2 games. I've seen multiple times this season, teams have forfeited games.
Really?
I've seen it. Yes, Central Michigan forfeited a game just this past weekend. Northeastern forfeited a game.
Yeah.
And I think it's happening because
This is women's basketball.
yeah. I haven't seen it in men's.
Those are only 2 games, though.
But here's the thing: the teams that they're playing have way better records than them. They're teams that would have beat them.
I mean, the Central Michigan versus Kent State game, I think, could have been competitive. And also looking at it on paper, they only had like 6 available players, if that. Now, the Northeastern one, I don't know anything about because I couldn't find any information about
I guarantee you, they saw that TCU had to do it. They saw it didn't negatively affect their overall record, and they're like, "Oh, let's forfeit some games so we don't lose." I guarantee because during COVID, that 100% happened. There were 100% teams that weren't that good. They were about to play a team that was better, and like, we got COVID, we can't play that one, because then they don't have to lose.
The Central Michigan one, I'm going to go to bat for them, at least, because if you look at everything that was available to them, they only had like 5, maybe 6 players available. And it's like, technically, yes, you could field a team with that, but it's also like, what is the health and safety of a player to run them out there for 40 minutes and just have them go?
Coaches do that sometimes.
I don't think so. I don't.
Yeah, literally, coaches will play a player the entire time.
No, it's very, very, very rare.
I know, but it happens.
I know, but then to ask 4 or 5 players to do that, or 3?
I know, but I'm just saying, like,
and then also to be competitive within the game.
I'm saying, how many of like those injuries that they had could you have played through? Like, I know you don't want to like force people to hurt themselves, but I'm just wondering how many of these injuries were as bad as they're saying because coaches don't want to take a loss on their record. Because maybe they're on the hot seat.
I don't think it's necessarily about a loss on the record or anything. You're forfeiting the game, so it's like,
and it doesn't affect your record at all.
It affects your conference record.
But that's not what you look at when you're evaluating a coach.
I think you are. You definitely assess
you
the
look at the
conference
overall record.
You do look at both, but I'm saying for Central Michigan at least, it's like, I think also you got to look out for the health and safety of your players to a certain extent. It's like, how often do coaches play only 6 players and are competitive in a game? It's far and few between, if at all.
Yeah. Sometimes people run a short bench.
I mean, like,
especially in March.
I see like 7 is like the smallest I've ever seen ran before where the teams are competitive. 6, I feel like, is unheard of.
That's what Kansas does in men's right now.
Really? They're only running 6 players?
They do not have a deep bench this year.
Really? They only run like... I mean, like, if a player's like getting like a minute or 2, I don't count that.
That's what UNC did in their tournament run, or their national championship run. The appearance in the game a couple years ago. They only played 6 players.
I mean, like,
it happens.
Doesn't have the minutes. I mean, yeah, it's interesting.
In the national championship game 2 years ago between Kansas and UNC, Armando Bacot got hurt, and they had to put in Puff Johnson, and he did not play, and he threw up on the sideline because he didn't play. They only played like 6 guys.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It happens. 6 is like literally the absolute smallest.
Yeah.
You have to have a 6-man. But I'm just saying, I have never seen someone forfeit a game. TCU. Sorry, these dang allergies, ragweed.
Yeah, like
TCU forfeited a game because they had to.
Right.
And they tried the very next week. They're like, try out. We need to play games.
Right.
These other teams, I haven't seen them do that.
I mean, the Northeastern one, I think you might have a point.
I think I'm 100%
because I'm looking at it, and it's like I looked at the box scores, and it's like they play 8 players, and as far as I could tell, there was no reports of like injuries or anything about that coming out. So I don't know exactly what's going on in Northeastern's women's basketball program, but there was something up, and I agree with you on that. Now, when it came to like Central Michigan, I'm like, there was lists of reports of injuries. There was reports coming out where they lost like 2 or 3 players, and like they already had like 9 players, and it's like, I don't know how comfortable I would be as a coach
running out with 6 players and being like, yeah, this is what we have. Go and make it happen. It's not like your men's rec league.
It's next man up, baby.
Yeah.
I just think that I just don't think it's a coincidence. I don't. Also, a couple years ago, I know Virginia, their women's basketball team, they were like 3-22 and something like that. And then they were set to play at Louisville, who ended up being a Final Four team that year. Very good. They were going to get waxed in that game. And then Virginia all of a sudden is like, oh, we can't get off the tarmac for the plane. We're going to forfeit. Because it didn't negatively affect their record. And it's like, you guys didn't even try to get off.
Do you feel like they should just change the rule to where it affects your record if you forfeit?
I think there should be an investigation. Because if the whole point of sports, and I know it's collegiate sports, but still, let's be honest, it's still professional in a sense.
Yeah.
The whole point,
a certain tier of it.
Yes, the whole point of sports is that you are competing. At least on this level, it's that you are competing to win. And if you have a coach who's like, oh, we're not going to win that game, we're just not going to play, there should be punishment. And that, I guarantee that happened during COVID too. I guarantee that happened during COVID. I would just see all these teams. I've seen it more in women's, obviously, because I'm talking about it more than men. But during COVID, it was happening everywhere. There were teams that like, oh, we're not going to beat that team. A fourth of our team is out because of COVID. Whoops.
I mean,
And whether that was true, and they were, because I think there were coaches that had outbreaks of COVID that were willing to cover it up at that time just to play, which I don't condone that either. Didn't,
also,
that's not really as much an issue.
That it was also like a very contagious disease.
No, I know, but I do also think there were coaches that were
Not
using.
disease, but
That's a disease.
was it disease?
Yeah. Yes. It's
Influenza
a disease.
is a disease.
Yes.
Oh.
But no, I think there were coaches using COVID as an excuse to not get blown out. And so,
Right. I mean,
I'm seeing it a lot in women's basketball this year. I gotta say something.
like it's been 4 games out of the whole season.
No, it's been multiple.
I mean,
When you forfeit, you have to forfeit 2 games at a time.
I don't think so.
TCU had to.
Well, TCU, that was the week because they had like a game on like Tuesday and a game on like Friday or something. It was like, or like a Thursday, Sunday. They just didn't have the players to get healthy in the time.
No. The I read it. I read about it when it happened. The rule is when you forfeit a game, you have to forfeit 2. You can't just forfeit 1. So, I just think that's what's happening. I think these coaches are not the competitors that they should be. And, I understand that you don't want someone to be so competitive that they just destroy their lives to compete at that level, but also you get paid to compete. You should do it.
You're talking about coaches, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the coach is the one that are making these calls. It's not the players. But all right. Anyway, I think we hit it all. Time to do the pick'ems.
Sure.
All right. I'll go a little quick with this. We did first off. We got Kentucky at Mississippi State. This is an interesting matchup. Both teams are 18-8, I believe.
Here, I'll help you out with that.
Yeah, it's at Mississippi State.
They are.
Which Mississippi State's pretty good. I think Mississippi State beat Kentucky last year. Interestingly enough.
More or less right. 19-8, but yeah.
They're both 19-8.
Yep.
Okay, maybe they were both 18-8 going into Saturday. But I think this is interesting. I'm gonna go with, I think Mississippi State. I don't know. I'm not very confident about that.
I just don't know what team's going to show up for Kentucky. It's like, are we scorching earth with Calipari or we're beating Alabama by 30? I guess Kentucky, they have talent. I don't know too much about Mississippi State.
Mississippi State has talent too. They're not as talented as Kentucky. All right, next up we got BYU at Kansas. BYU took a not great loss at Kansas State this past weekend. Kansas is a harder place to play. Fog Allen is notoriously one of the toughest places in the country. I've got Kansas.
Yeah, I got Kansas too. Still think they just have no depth this year.
Well, they don't.
I do wonder how far they can go in the tournament because of that. Like, what happens the moment?
Well, teams tend to shorten up their benches anyway.
No, but I wonder, like, what happens when Kansas gets that one game they get into foul trouble? What happens?
You got to go to your bench.
You know exactly. And, like,
And you got to try to bury that guy on offense or defense, whatever you got to do.
Mm.
All right, next up, we got Auburn at Tennessee. That's a fun one.
It is.
Auburn, I believe, has a better – do they have a better SEC record still?
They are currently sitting at 10-4.
Oh, no.
Whereas Tennessee is 11-3.
All right, so Tennessee. So this is actually for first place.
Yeah,
more or less.
Tennessee has first place over Alabama at the moment because they destroyed them by like 20
Yeah,
early in the
yeah,
year.
it's pretty bad. I'm gonna go Tennessee here. I like Tennessee.
I do too. I like Tennessee as well. Two really good players in Dalton Connect.
Yeah.
And then Johnny Brom.
Janai Brom.
Johnny Brom.
Yeah.
Both very good players.
Yeah, these are two good defensive teams that can also score. So
two complete teams according to the metrics.
All right. Next up, we have Seton Hall at Creighton. Seton Hall still looking to
Find a way.
I think they're on the right side of the bubble currently, but they still have some work to do. Creighton coming off a bad loss, not a terrible loss, but it's not a good loss against St. John's.
Yep.
So, who you got?
Creighton. It's at Creighton. They seem to be defending home pretty well. I'm giving Creighton.
Yeah, I'm taking Creighton as well. It's for that. It's at home.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Gonzaga at San Francisco. San Francisco is pretty good this year.
Yeah,
they're solid. I don't know.
NIT.
Yeah, they've got work to do if they actually want to make the tournament, but
Yeah.
they are not bad. And by the way, the West Coast Conference season, it ends earlier
It sure
than
does.
most people, and their tournament starts earlier. So
What do you call it? Gonzaga versus St. Mary's is the last game of the season.
for them, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is this week.
Who you got?
San Francisco.
I've got Gonzaga.
Fair enough.
I like Gonzaga, man. I think
I
don't like their long-term prospects.
I really don't. It's like, I'm with you. I don't like their long-term prospects. They really don't have a bench.
Nope.
The only notable player that I think is good for them is Ike. I forget his first name.
You don't like Ryan Nembhard?
Not very much. No, he was decent at Creighton, but he's kind of just fallen off for them. Graham Ike is his name. Yeah, he's like the only one that's like really getting production out of him. His backup, Braden Huff, blew the St. Mary's game and is abysmal on defense.
St. Mary's, I think they lost because they got screwed at the end.
Well, it's not even that they got screwed at the end. Ike got in the foul trouble, so they had to bring in Huff, and they just attacked him, and he gave up like 8 straight points.
They still could have won.
But it was a very slow game with poor offense. Like, Gonzaga's offense is not that impressive to me.
All right. Well, I got Gonzaga in this one. All right. Florida at South Carolina. This one is a fun one.
It is.
Both teams are good teams this year.
I wonder if both are still going to be ranked today. Actually, we'll
Florida probably won't. They took a loss to Alabama this past week.
It just came out. South Carolina is 18. Florida is 24.
Oh, they are still ranked.
Yep. There you go.
Okay. Well, yeah. I'm going to take South Carolina. The reason I'm going to take South Carolina is they got a tough physical defense. They play like a Big Ten team. Florida is in the similar mold as Kentucky and Alabama, where they just want to outscore you. They don't play a ton of defense right now.
Yep.
And so I think when those two types of teams meet, I think the bully ball tends to win out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go with South Carolina.
I'm going with Florida. I think Florida is the better team.
All right, next we've got Kansas at Baylor. Baylor coming off of a
tough loss to Houston in overtime.
First half was all Houston, and they came storming back to force OT, and then
they played
lost it down the stretch.
Yeah, lost it down the stretch. Almost lost it in regulation.
Yeah.
Jamal Shed just barely not able to get off his shot in time with 0.1 seconds left.
I've got Kansas.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Baylor. They're led by some freshman guards that are good, but I don't think good enough just yet. Like Jacoby Walters and I believe they have a senior in Ray J. Dennis.
Yeah.
Who is nice, but I just think Kansas right now is a more complete team.
Yeah, Baylor's too up and down for me. This is the first time one of the first times I'm picking against Baylor. I've picked Baylor a lot this year.
Are you just trying to manifest something?
I don't know. Maybe I was. You're probably right. Get into the psyche of me because I'm so broken from Kenny Payne. Anyway, next up we got Illinois at Wisconsin. Two Big Ten teams that are kind of fun.
Well, Wisconsin has really slid. As far as like,
and then Illinois took a terrible loss.
They lost to
week.
Penn State.
That's not a good loss.
No,
that is a bad loss.
Not,
had a losing record at the time that they lost.
It is currently the 2 and 3 seed in the Big Ten. Will more than likely solidify the 2 if Illinois can separate themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got Wisconsin.
I can't do it. I really just can't pick Wisconsin right now. They just look awful. They've lost 5 out of their last 7. Yeah, give me Illinois, but either of these teams right now I'm not feeling too confident about.
All right, next we got Marquette at Creighton. I like Marquette.
Marquette's good. Marquette's good. They got blown out by UConn, but Marquette is good.
So Marquette doesn't have a lot of athleticism. I don't think that's going to bite them in this one.
I like their big. What's his name?
Iguodala.
Yeah, I really like him.
Yeah, Iguodala is good. Tyler Kolek is one of the best point guards in the country.
I mean, they got experience. They're old, if you will. I mean,
yeah. They're just not super athletic.
Yeah.
All right, Virginia at Duke.
I don't think this is close.
I mean, if Filipowski has to get his leg amputated, it could be close.
Yeah, and I think he still beats him with one leg.
Yeah, I got Duke in this one.
Yeah, Virginia just can't score the ball.
They had a stretch where they were scoring fine.
Yeah, and then
it dropped off again.
I mean,
just completely dropped off.
I mean, like they scored it was like 40 something against Wake. It was like 46 to 44.
It was really bad.
It was like,
and then they scored 45 against UNC, 44 I think.
44. Yeah, their past 3 games they haven't broke 50.
Yeah,
they've gone 47 to 49 win over Wake.
Oh yeah, they got just
and then they lost
handled by West Virginia.
I watched that
Virginia
one.
Tech.
And man, oh man! I mean, to be fair, Virginia Tech was hitting everything.
Yep.
Under the sun, and then North Carolina they lost. I mean, like, yeah. Unless their defense really shows up, I just don't see it. It's in Cameron Indoor too. Like,
yeah. Virginia's just so up and down this year.
Well, they play really slow.
No, they always do.
They're a very slow team. They want to control the pace on defense, but then you've just got to hit your shots.
They normally do, and they just haven't this year.
And then also it's like their free throws suck. They're one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the nation as well.
All right, next up we've got Houston at Oklahoma.
I really don't think this one's close either.
Yeah, I'm taking Houston. I really like Houston.
Oklahoma's starting to become a bubble for me. I mean, the only thing that's good for them is that they play in a good conference. So, like, the losses aren't as
They'll be
bad.
a 10 seed.
Yeah, maybe an 11.
I think they'll be a 10 seed.
You don't think they're going to be on that bubble?
No,
I mean, they're not trending. I mean,
it's their start to the year and also the tough conference.
I don't know. They're barely beating teams like Oklahoma State. Their last good win was BYU.
The committee looks very, very deeply at the net rankings. The net really, really, really values a tough schedule, whether you win those games or not.
I mean, like, out of conference, their best win is Iowa. In conference, their best win is Iowa State.
I don't think it matters about wins in the net.
Yeah, which is crazy, though, because it's like, if you look at this team, it's like they just haven't really performed. Like, their best win is against, like, a non-ranked BYU recently.
Yeah,
I mean,
but they're not. I think they were ranked at the time, but they're not ranked now.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, next up, Tennessee at Alabama, a rematch of the drubbing.
So that's interesting because Alabama usually does pretty well at home.
Yeah.
I believe.
Those, yeah, I mean, like every team in college does significantly better at home.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they have not lost in SEC play at home. So there's a stat to go for you.
mm-hmm. Who you got?
Alabama? I don't know.
I'll take Tennessee.
I don't know, honestly.
I'll take Tennessee.
Those will probably be for who will win the SEC.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, Tennessee's got a tough week.
Yeah,
they got a tough week.
Who do they have? They've got Auburn
and Alabama.
They got Auburn, Alabama, South Carolina, and Kentucky. So their last 4 games are all ranked teams right now.
Yep. And then we're moving on to TCU, BYU. I'm going to take BYU in this. I like TCU. I've liked TCU all year. They have gone through a bit of a,
Do they have Jameer Nelson's kid?
Yeah, Jameer Nelson Jr.
Yeah.
They've lost some games recently, but I do like TCU still. That being said, it's at BYU. BYU can still shoot. I'm going to take BYU.
TCU's basically beaten the teams that they should beat and lost to the teams that they should lose to, more or less.
I do like TCU, though.
I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go TCU in this one.
Oh, I'm actually picking BYU.
Oh, I'm going TCU.
All right.
I thought you were going TCU as well. You're like, I like TCU.
No, I'm just saying I like them, but I'm picking against them. I've liked them all year long.
Okay.
All right. Finally, we've got, I know for a fact we're going to disagree on this one.
I don't
Gonzaga at St. Mary's.
St. Mary's.
I'm taking Gonzaga.
Why?
They are very, very well coached. They have talent. It just hasn't manifested this year. I know
St. Mary's is one of the biggest winning streaks in the nation right now.
I'm aware. It's the longest.
Is it?
Yep.
They've got, 15 in a row?
It's a lot. I know that their defense has played really well. I think Gonzaga is going to pull off the win. Like in the beginning of that first matchup, they jumped out to a lead and until they piddled it away. But I mean, they have the ability to just
here's what's weird for me
is St. Mary's.
I don't know how to judge St. Mary's because they just haven't played anybody. Like the best games they've played is like the Mountain West teams of like Colorado State and like Boise State and like San Diego State. Like they've really not played anybody to a certain extent of a test. And it's like they beat Gonzaga at Gonzaga, and now Gonzaga's got to go.
And again, I think Gonzaga got screwed in that game.
Yeah, I agree with you to a certain extent, but it's like I don't know. I mean, they're winning for a reason. So
no, I know their defense is great.
Yeah,
and St. Mary's is a well coached team too. I'm not going to.
They're going to slow down the pace and do all that.
I just think Gonzaga is going to win.
Also, St. Mary's is very similar to Kansas. Not a lot of depth.
No, well, neither does Gonzaga.
I also think they have an injury recently too.
Yep, they do.
Who was it?
Jefferson.
Jefferson's? Is that what that means?
Yeah, the red is an injured player.
Gotcha. I mean, I'm still gonna go St. Mary's, but because I just don't believe in Gonzaga this year. Gonzaga and FAU are like the same thing for me right now. I just don't believe in either team.
Yeah.
It's like a notable mid-major name that should do something in the tournament, but I just don't think will.
FAU's not notable, but I mean they had the run last year.
Right.
Anyway, that is our show, our episode, if you will. Yeah, like, subscribe
if you've gotten this far. Absolutely.
I don't think anyone has.
And
all right, we'll see you next time.
One.